Welcome to the Blockchain Real Estate Podcast, sponsored by the Blockchain Real Estate Summit. Don't forget to mark your calendars for the Blockchain Real Estate Summit 2025, happening online from September 23rd through the 25th for our worldwide audience, with over 50 renowned real estate and blockchain experts and academics representing over 30 countries from around the world. Visit blockchainrealestatesummit.com for more information about the event and to subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates on innovations in the blockchain and real estate sectors. That's blockchainrealestatesummit.com. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Blockchain Real Estate Summit podcast. I am your host, Michael Flight. And as always, this is not financial advice. This is not accounting advice. This is not any type of advice. This is purely for education. And if you are interested in any of the topics that we talk about, I suggest you go and visit our guest because we have a super cool guest today. But before we get into that, I'd like to remind everybody that the Blockchain Real Estate Summit is once again happening September 23rd through the 25th, or actually 26th in 2025. It's all online. It's 3 full days. It's Europe, it's Asia. It's more RWA information than you will find almost anywhere in the world. At least that's our story, and we're sticking with it. But what I would like to do now is introduce our guest, Daniel Radwansky. And Daniel is the co-founder of StegX. We have featured StegX once or twice at the Blockchain Real Estate Summit, and have also had conversations with Daniel, probably going back to 2022 when I first met him. And then he is the founder of a new blockchain on-chain reporting solution for RWAs. It's called Xertifi, and that's Xertifi with an X. So with that, Daniel, why don't you give us a little bit of background as to why you decided to get into RWAs, blockchain, and everything else that you've been doing over the past few years.
Yeah, thank you first for having me again here with you, and also highly appreciate that you have been able to speak last time at your summit, and looking forward also to the next one in September. So be sure that you all tune in. It will be a great event, and I always like when all these kind of RWA people or real estate people come together and showcase their common thinking and what is actually driving the market in a more detailed way than you see normally. But getting back to your question, so I basically have a career in institutional real estate now for 15 years. I'm in the management roles, or have been in management roles, especially here in Europe, but then later on with a global angle to it. And what I have seen is that both sides of the market, when we look at the market for real estate or other kinds of real assets, they are not very well connected. So asset managers who normally provide the supply, so they provide the access to real estate investment opportunities, and those investors who actually provide the capital, they are not sufficiently connected, and they both are looking for the other side somewhere in a very fragmented and non-efficient way. And that was basically the trigger why we have been thinking about StegX for a longer time. But when we saw that the regulation is coming up and taking shape in Singapore, here in Europe, we realized that now this is the time to build a truly digital platform, a platform where we see it from top to down. So when we digitize the investment product, we can also digitize other kinds of value streams within the real estate investment cycle. And that's what we're basically doing at StegX, where I saw, okay, in an institutional world, there's something missing. Even in the big fund administration platforms, they do not connect all the service provider under one roof. And that's where we have been building at StegX an ecosystem to combine service providers from the whole value chains with the blockchain infrastructure, with the regulatory pieces that need to come together to actually enable digitization of assets, so tokenization of real estate into financial assets. And now I've seen the working now, you will say it correctly, more than 2 years in the tokenization world, that there's one big piece missing, which is there or also not there in the traditional world, which is data. When we look now at the real estate asset, in my career, I always had the challenge that you need to find the asset data included into your processes, whether it's the portfolio management, fund management, asset management, or also the administrator side. So when you do the administration, like the back office functionalities, you always are reliant on the asset data, so the tenant data, the data of the cash flows, and so on. You can have so many data streams in a real estate asset. And when you do not digitize this data and connect it on-chain with the data from the token, so the transactional data, then there's a big piece of value missing for investors. And I think that was holding back the tokenization industry for a while. And that's since I did not find a solution on the market which is fulfilling that purpose at a level where I could say you do not need to integrate it to the full scale. I've been building up Xertifi right now and rolling it out now to not only cater to the tokenization industry, but also cater to the regular traditional real estate guys.
And how does the data, does it just kind of like float alongside the token, or is it out there as a separate token? So how does Xertifi actually work?
Yeah, it's you could say it is outside of the token. So we have on the one hand side the token. With the token, depending on which chain, when you tokenize a financial product, so that's what I'm focusing on. So I will relate to that.
Right.
There are several chains which can store even metadata. So metadata could be like dynamic data and so on, but some also token standards and chains are not very capable of doing that. So in this fragmented infrastructure market, there will not be right now, maybe in a few years' time, a one-fits-all solution. So getting back to your question, you have those token data, which is purely focusing on the transactional side, like investors buying,
Right.
issuers, minting, and so on. And now to enrich this data for the investors, you need to have the asset data, which is super relevant for real estate. And so what we do is we create a dynamic NFT for this kind of asset data, where we provide a template, which then can be filled out with support by AI. And this dynamic NFT can be updated. And it also provides an access to a data storage, which is on-chain on IPFS. So it is basically combining permission to have to a mini website, I like to call it, because it's
Right.
more visible. Like the user interface is a mini website where you see all those data points like you would see in a normal reporting. But those data points are hashed on the blockchain. So therefore, all this immutable,
Right.
trustworthy, and so on. I don't need to explain it to you. You have heard it a couple of times.
Right, but there's
Um,
a lot of people out there that might not understand, like the interplanetary file system and other things like that. So we should probably,
yeah,
still explain it. And I appreciate you
yeah,
explaining it. Yeah.
sure. Let me dig once a little bit deeper. So let's start first with what I mentioned with dynamic NFTs. So most people associate NFTs in general to pictures of monkeys or kind of funny things in the world.
Yeah.
So, but what it is, it's a token where some data is stored on it. And this token is living on the blockchain. Now, when we see it as in my example with not having some JPEG stored on it, but having real estate data points like how many tenants a building has or the latest cash flow, something like that, or the building year, then those data points are saved the same way on the blockchain, like the attributes, whether the monkey wears a hat or smokes a cigarette or so on.
Right. Right.
And so the principle is similar. We store data in this trustworthy technology. And now, when we look at these data points, they are stored on this NFT, which is stored on a blockchain. Now, with dynamic, it's coming some new dimension to it since we can now update this data in a regular interval or whenever the the owner of this NFT wants to update it. And with updating, now we will store an updated data point and store the history also is visible on the blockchain because the NFT will also store the history. So as an investor, to give it more tangible use case, they would be able to understand the cash flow from all the updates. When you have a monthly reporting, the investor can look back from the existence of this NFT the whole way to when it was coming into existence, what kind of cash flow has happened in the past. Now let's go to the other side. Now we have the data points covered to some degree. Let's look at the data storage. So when we store data in the traditional way, when you email and so on, it's normally living in one cloud, AWS, Google Cloud, or some other kind of cloud provider. So there's so many. When the goal is when you have now, or what would be quite funny is when you have all this very in detail data stored in PDFs who stay somewhere in the off-chain world. So
Right.
therefore, to also fill this gap, the solution would be to take those PDFs and do not store it in a regular cloud, but also share this data in the IPFS, in the interplanetary file system. So this was basically similar like a regular traditional cloud, but this cloud is living on the blockchain.
It's
So
kind of like
it,
a permanent deal room. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. It's like now you can use it as a deal room. For instance, you can store the maintenance contracts there and give you an example again. Now, assume you would sell your house to the next one, and you would say, okay, I do not give you a folder full of paper, but I give you this now digital NFT or
Hmm.
dynamic NFT, and all the data, all the maintenance contracts are stored there. So you
Right.
have the full access to all the historic cash flow, like data points, but also the documents which back that up. So it can be like a scene when you combine those two, like a digital twin for your real estate asset,
Hmm.
which is basically representing the whole history of your asset in under one system.
Okay. And I'm assuming since this is IPFS, it's EVN compatible NFT, or it doesn't have to be any type of compatibility.
It's it is, but it does not really need to. So what my goal is really to push it out to the real estate world, not only to the tokenization industry. And that also implies that there needs to be a user interface which helps the users to actually use the system without blockchain knowledge.
Okay.
So the onboarding, the provision of a built-in wallet, so wallet as a service, and all these kind of things are inexistent and can be used like a normal Web2 interface with a goal then to share, basically when you create this dynamic NFT, you share the access to it via a link, which can be integrated to all kind of reporting, all kind of investment platforms and so on, which then helps basically the users to work in a Web2 way with this Web3 infrastructure. And at best, they do not even realize that they're using something which has something to do with blockchain only when they really need it to back up
Right.
their data and their history.
Right. Which is, the way it should be. I think a lot of crypto people like to lead with blockchain, and for the last, I would say like 5 to 8 years, everybody was leading with blockchain. Like people would say, "Oh, this is blockchain. This is super cool." But I look at it like the blockchain is in the background. It's permanent. It's immutable, and it's storage. And if that's abstracted away, all you need to do is, well, maybe I need an email to sign on, or maybe I need, my Apple ID to sign on, or, in the future, maybe I need, my certified ID to sign on.
Correct. Yeah. I see it the same way. Like when you now would go out of your office and want to take an Uber, you also would not care whether this Uber, the whole app is running on AWS or Google Cloud. You
Right.
just use it. So the same way we will see the same experience in blockchain. And to be quite frank, that's what I also realized when having so many discussions with StegX, where we help clients with capital raising. They don't care how the technology works to a degree that it will change the decision when they say, okay, I want to try out and raise capital because I like the story and I like to reach out to new investors in new markets with your solution, then it's fine whether this runs on blockchain, runs in the traditional world, as long as they get the result they aim for, then they're happy.
Yeah, and why don't you give us a little bit of information on StegX and how you started StegX and why you started that, and then circle back as to how Xertifi fits in with that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like I said a little bit in the introduction, I was involved in the management and institutional real estate industry, and specifically, I was operating with my co-founder fund administration platform, which we have been setting up from zero to then 35 billion assets under management during the time we have been working for this company. And in that role, we have seen how those two sides of the market do not really well connect, like I elaborated before. And this was basically since I had the day-to-day work with a lot of asset managers from all around the world, whether those have been in the US, in Asia, and so on. So they were all like mostly global asset managers, and they had German clients, the clients I was representing. So in the discussions with those asset managers, some were smaller, some were bigger, um, it was always the same topic. When it came to a new fund, they want to have a new product. How can I find investors? How can I approach the investors you are having on your platform? Because we were working for a very big financial institution here in Europe. How can I reach out to them? How can I find them? I do not find investors. How can I do capital raise? I need to fly here back for money. Was
Right.
all, and one time one asset manager literally told me, Daniel, this is very hard. I fly around the world and I'm a beggar. I fly business class and I go back for money. And that's like, but that's the reality. Wine and dine and begging for money is the life of many C-level executive at asset management companies who want to raise for a new fund. And this is not how it should be, right? At least what we should want it to be now in this digitized world. And so that's where the trigger, how we were thinking about, okay, actually, there should be a solution where assets, good investment opportunities, find investors. And when you do not only make it like a broker or real estate agent, where you then facilitate some of the transaction off the platform, but the goal should be that an investor in Singapore can click a button and buy an investment here from Frankfurt.
Right.
So, and this within seconds. And the blockchain is now providing the solution because the blockchain is a global network. And whether the investor is sitting here around the corner in Germany or sitting in Singapore or in South Africa, it does not matter. It takes around the same time for the transaction to happen. It's the same platform they're using, the same technology infrastructure. And that's why we decided to go out with StegX and have this global approach with StegX, because we saw that the future will be global. The investment markets will be more globalized. And especially cross-border investments was one of the missing pieces when it came to the real estate industry, which is a super fragmented and localized market. Even in the largest capital markets like the US, most of the investments in real estate come from the US. So it's a very home biased market. But this will not be the future for those investors since they need to diversify.
Well, even in the
So
US, it's regional too. It could be,
yeah,
the Northeast or the Southeast or, state specific, like, you have in Europe, where it's country specific. So,
yeah, it's even worse. Yeah, it's a,
but I want to reiterate because you primarily started out in Germany, but you're working with assets worldwide, and you're also working with asset managers and money managers worldwide. Is that correct?
correct. Yeah, we made the decision to start from Germany because of the regulation, because of how we could start it actually. Nevertheless, our goal was always from day one to be a global platform because that was not available in the market. I think until today, there's very little players who want to be global and want to have this global reach. And what also makes us a little bit special is we do not manage the assets ourselves. So this we do not source the assets ourselves. We do not manage assets ourselves. So we are completely unbiased.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how the approach we have taken with StegX to be global and unbiased, to be open for the whole investment market and real estate market.
So is it a marketplace or is it more of a white glove service type of thing where, people get, personalized service?
We do have a marketplace, but I'm a little bit hesitant with this answer to say it like that. We have the core of our business is the marketplace, but we help our clients with an end-to-end solution. The end-to-end solution comprises everything which is necessary. So we help our clients with the investment structuring. So we have a dedicated tokenization vehicle in Luxembourg, which can be used to securitize and tokenize all kinds of investment structures. And then we can distribute those tokenized investment products via our own marketplace or distribute them via our global distribution network. And then later on, we help them with the administration, like our investor relations reporting and so on. And that's also where this then Xertifi fits in very well to be able to provide our clients a 360-degree approach, fully on-chain and dedicated to all the needs along the whole value chain.
Okay. Is there anything we missed here that you'd like to, bring up about either Xertifi or StegX?
Um, I think I think we did not miss anything. It's a good open conversation, but probably you have some questions in your mind, or you have something else where you say that would be of quite an interest for my audience or for you personally. Happy to also elaborate to anything, how I can provide some kind of value or insights.
Yeah, no, the main thing I'm most interested in is the Xertifi and how because the big issue is when you're underwriting a property or when you're evaluating an investment or how do you get that? I mean, we had this exact same problem this week. Somebody approached us with an off-market shopping center and they said, "Are you interested in buying this?" I'm like, "Well, sure, send the data over." And then so I asked my analyst for 3 days. I'm like, how come I don't have the underwriting? And he said, "Well, the broker's not giving us the tenant data." Like, well, how are we supposed to make an offer if we don't know what the tenant data is? Because there's no way to value it. So that's, the thing. It's like, well, if you were able to sign an NDA and you were able to go through something like Xertifi and say, this is the access, we don't want you releasing this information, and here it is. It's a much better way to do things. You could keep it off market and say, I'm not selling it, but if you did want to take a look at it, just sign off here, and by entering into this, you agree that you're not going to release this information.
Yeah, and completely correct. So now look at both sides, what you just described. When you know the broker, you have the challenge that you every time you need to share this huge amount of data. One, piece of data needs to be updated, you need to share everything again, or you need to provide an access to some complicated data room.
Right,
I,
right.
I had always to work with all these data rooms, and I hated them because they're always so complicated. You need to set up yourself. It takes like a lot of time. Now imagine, like you said before, you sign an NDA quickly online, and then you get a link, and you have all the data in one place. You just click the link. You have this basic real estate data, like what I explained, like the data we hash, and then you have all the supporting documents right there in one solution, right there in like in a mini website even. So for the broker, sending out a link is super easy. For the
Yeah,
interested buyer, going through the link and knowing that all the data is accurate, that all the data is the actual data, like a single source of truth, which all the buyers who are competing work with, it's a much better solution than you need to always to check yourself, the data room, need to go
right.
and pull the data out. Of course, it's not. Uh, I would say it's just a start. What we aim to do when you look at now the how AI will impact all these different work streams. When you have the data on chain in a digitized way, you can also use that data for your purpose. Now, assume you're analyst. He would have a question, okay, show me the 3 top tenants in their industry, whether they fit to your risk in your portfolio or something like that. So this is not possible when you need to go through a huge data room with all the PDFs,
Right.
and you need to do it yourself. Maybe in a few years' time, all the data rooms can read PDFs and understand them, and you have access to that. But when with our solution, yes, we want to do that quite quickly so that we really get the insights from the data which is stored in this kind of NFT environment. And so it's machine readable, and this would be very helpful for even improving the efficiency in the day-to-day operations of the real estate industry.
Very nice. Very nice. I should connect you with some guys here that we started using them back in 1998. They were actually digitizing our leases back then because everything, in all the documents on the property, because at the time back then, everything was paper and there was no digital. So it was an amazing thing. They would come in, they digitize everything, it'd be all in PDFs, and they give you a CD. And the really cool thing about their CD is a searchable CD. So it was unique, and they're still doing it. And they're also, now doing data rooms, but it would be helpful because of the amount of data they have to, connect with you guys and see what, you could do, worldwide.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Maybe one thing I like to add always is our my core philosophy about why I'm actually doing that. I left it out before, but what we see all around the world, and also today Donald Trump was speaking there or addressing the folks in New York at the DAS event, is when you look at the development or the upcoming development, we see that money will be digital. So the introduction of CBDCs in many countries, but also the stablecoin introduction now in the US, for instance, that you build it on stablecoins, your crypto environment. So, but the overall narrative I want to say is that money will be digital. Now, financial assets will also become digital. And money is digital and stored on the blockchain. For all the transactions, there will need to be some kind of a counterpart, a digital one, so the transaction can happen on the chain. And that's where tokenization will come more and more into mainstream and will be the norm very soon, because you will need to pay for the money for assets in a digital way. And now with Xertifi, you can also have a solution where you can build the bridge between the money and the assets, because the data which is representing the assets is also digital. So it's like closing the gap I saw in the tokenization market where the token was there, but somehow which was describing actually the value of the token was sitting somewhere in an email inbox or somewhere in a cloud storage. And the money was digital already, but nobody understood that. So now we have an added value because all three parts, which are mandatory for a financial transaction, are now digitized and going to be on chain.
Very good. Very good. That's really cool. So can you give us how people can find Xertifi and StegX?
Yeah, sure. It's www.certify with an I .xyz is for certify, and StegX is www.stegx.finance.
Okay, very cool. We're going to have that information in the show notes. We're also going to have links to your social media so we can get this out. Is there anything else you wanted to say to our listeners about, Xertifi or, the other platforms that you're involved with?
I first of all thank everybody, thank you everybody for their attention, and feel free, as Michael said, to reach out to me on social media or drop me an email. I think I hope when an easy Google search is sufficient to find me. And also thank you, Michael, for having me, of course, for the time you spent and also for the nice conversation we had.
Yeah, and Daniel's also on LinkedIn too, and he's very responsive on LinkedIn. So, well, with that, we're wrapping up another podcast. I really appreciate you coming on, Daniel, and explaining, because I think so many people start off with the easy part, which is, oh, let's tokenize things, but they don't understand, what even the point of tokenization is because they didn't step back and say, what's the goal of the tokenization? And if we do achieve the tokenization, how do we accommodate that token to make it the optimal? And so I really like the way you're bridging, regional and traditional finance, and you're bringing it into the future. And then you're saying it's not only in the future, but here we're trying to help you even do asset management and analysis with, we're bringing this finance in the future. So I really do appreciate that. And with that, people, thank you very much for listening. As always, don't forget about the Blockchain Real Estate Summit happening in September. You can get your tickets now at blockchainrealestatesummit.com. That's blockchainrealestatesummit.com. Thank you again, and thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Daniel. So,
Thank you, Michael.
I will. We're adding this part in. I don't know how you can do it, but before we end up ending, can you add in this part about collateralizing tokens? So, Daniel, you and I were talking about the life cycle of a token, and one of the things that you had mentioned is the biggest thing is, and what I've always found most attractive to investors at some point in the future is instead of having a paper share, which you really can't do anything with, you can then use that share of your real estate asset for collateral. So can you give us a little bit of information on how your solution can really help that?
Yeah, sure. I when it comes to tokenization and so on itself, it's like about the digitization of a financial product. And one of the main benefits, besides the cross-border topics I mentioned previously, is also what you can actually do after the transaction happened with your token. So in a well-functional tokenized economy, we will see that those tokens can be used as collateral or will have many more purposes than just the major investment purpose, so where you invest and let the money sit there. But you can actually use the token to get more liquidity by collateralizing it. Now, what I saw when I was thinking about why is collateralization, the integration of DeFi, of tokenized assets into DeFi not really taking off. and the multiple conversations I had about this topic with those players who actually work in DeFi was always they don't understand real estate. They don't understand what is this underlying asset actually about, where does the value come from? And so it's very understandable that they do not have insights into that because the token itself does not provide this information. Now, since the collateral will be provided on-chain, the DeFi protocol is on-chain, the token is on-chain, they need to understand also this kind of underlying asset in an on-chain way. And that's where Xertifi can help, since it's providing the real estate data and also backing up this data with the respective documents. So therefore, the whole tokenization plus certification of the data process will enable that this token can be used as a collateral, because now everybody can trace the decision of the collateral pool, trace the information on the underlying asset in an on-chain way, which then is, of course, also a completely 100% digitized way.
Yeah, and so what Daniel is really hitting on is the fact that if you have that token, you could use it to borrow against, and that's how you get more liquidity to buy other things. Or you could use it, as a pledge to, to do other things. So yeah, and then the other thing is that what's good about tokens and what's hard with the paper shares is even in valuation or estate planning or anything like that. So how do you, if somebody's, looking at, well, how do I know how much I'm supposed to value this at, or how much is this estate worth? With the Xertifi system, you'll be able to go in and see that, well, I can, and analyze this and I know what, this token is worth versus where do I find the, information on this non-traded paper share of a syndication that I have in my drawer. So
Correct. Yeah, correct. So all the information stored in one token next to the actual investment token and connecting them with the smart contract will be a solution which is easy to use. That's very important because we want all the real estate industry in the end to use our solutions and to tokenize the assets. And it is trustworthy since all the data is saved on the trustworthy ledger, the blockchain technology.
this is perfect, Daniel. I really appreciate all the information that you gave us. I mean, the collateral part is one of the things that I'm most excited about in tokenization. And I think at some point, for a host of other things, instead of just using treasury bills or bonds, people are going to start seeing, real estate as something that's has real value that they can use in other transactions too.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so that it's taking off very, very soon.
Thank you again.
Thank you for tuning in to the Blockchain Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by the Blockchain Real Estate Summit. Don't forget to mark your calendars for the Blockchain Real Estate Summit 2025, happening September 23rd through the 25th, online for our global audience. Secure your tickets today at blockchainrealestatessummit.com/registration. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow the Blockchain Real Estate Podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your feedback helps boost our visibility and allows us to reach more listeners like you. Have a guest in mind you'd like us to interview? Let us know by leaving a comment at blockchainrealestatessummit.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you at the summit.
Adam Carswell, the voice of liberty. This podcast is solely intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to provide tax, legal, investment, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, accounting, or investment advisors before engaging in any transaction or undertaking. Thank you for listening to the Blockchain Real Estate Podcast, which is a part of the Blockchain Real Estate Summit Network. Go to blockchainrealestatesummit.com for more information, free reports, and giveaways with free stuff. Thank you.